to Evertiq Expo here in Berlin. My name is Dennis Dahlgren and I'm joined by Alun Morgan from the EIPC. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome, Dennis. Pleasure.
You just finished up a presentation on the state of the electronics industry for 2024 with a future outlook. So, in a snapshot, how is the industry looking this year?
It's looking better, I have to say. We started this year with no expectation of being really any real change. We certainly didn't expect anything to happen until the summer, but now we are seeing upticks in economic activity, in GDP particularly in Europe, and we're seeing a positive sign. We track the purchasing managers' indices quite strongly, so the confidence level, if you like, from people buying electronics, and this now is ticking into positive territory for the first time in more than a year. So I think cautious optimism would be the phrase I would use. Yep. And we are certainly seeing some green shoots of recovery. Interest rates now are dropping down to normal rates again. We of course still have the geopolitical tensions, we still have the war in Ukraine, but however, despite all this, we're now seeing all the economies in Europe showing positive tracking upwards. Yep. So what's expected is that this year will continue to consolidate to some degree. Most forecasts I look at show 2025 should be for electronics a really good year. So it's about time we had one, and all the indicators are showing us this direction. We of course have still good technology advances occurring. We have now of course the Silicon Act, which will bring some more silicon back into Europe. So these stories, I am trying to convey the message that we don't need just silicon, we also need to invest in our PCB, in our materials, and this is a very strong message we want to give. However, the demand will be there. So when there's demand, we have a chance to do something, and I think it's, for me now, the first time I gave this business update talk in the last 3 years when I can be really positive. So I am being positive, although somewhat cautious.
That sounds good, but the question is, like you said, we need to have a broader scope of the industry, not just focus on silicon, which has been the EU's focus now. So what can the industry do to assist in promoting this to policymakers and politicians?
So the EIPC issued a letter of urgency in April, in fact, first of all, and we've asked people to actually understand that the silicon alone doesn't work. Silicon needs to be packaged. It needs then to be assembled, interconnected on circuit boards. This currently is done largely in Asia. So 2/3 of all the PCBs consumed in Europe are made in Asia, and chip packaging in Europe is hardly done. There are a few notable exceptions, but hardly done. So the message really is we need not to think about just silicon, we need to think about the whole supply chain, the whole value chain for electronics. And we're asking governments to actually put their hand in their pocket and give us some support. So our letter now has been signed by 170 manufacturers in Europe, and we'll probably get a few more after I talk today. This will then be presented to governments in Europe, regional, national and international. So the EU, national level and also regional level, to say, listen, here's the situation here. If you want to support our industry, if you want to have at least the capability to provide our own defence needs and space needs, which are very important for us in Europe, especially under this present situation, then please understand, just silicon alone will not do it. It's not enough. So we need to do more than that, and please give us some assistance. This means either in reducing some tariffs on some products coming in from Asia, for example. It could mean
energy prices.
Energy is a huge issue in Europe, uniquely in Europe. We could give some help with training, with reskilling of our workers for the new technologies. You could give us some assistance on capital grants, for example. So there's many things that could be done by the governments. They need to first understand. They need to do something. The silicon alone, even though silicon of course is sexy and a wonderful thing to talk about, and of course we welcome this, 100% we welcome it, it's not enough.
And just to illustrate the urgency in this development, 20 years ago or 24 years ago we had roughly 555 PCB manufacturers, and today in 2024 it's roughly around 170.
170 more or less, yes.
And what's the trajectory on that one?
So trajectory, I mean, somebody forecast 2020, 35 by none left. I mean, okay, I don't believe this is going to be true. No. The reality is we had around 5 billion euros worth of production in the year 2000, more or less. We now have around $2 billion dollars worth. And, you know, I think we have to make sure we maintain that 2 billion and start to grow this now. If we drop down from 2 billion, we get to the point where we're not viable anymore. Our supply chain is more or less left. So the supply chain for electronics, for PCB manufacturing, is now starting in Asia, all of it. So even if we do invest more in the PCB manufacturers, we still have this extended supply chain. To get this back into Europe in any way at all requires us to build up our PCB manufacturing first. If we can do this, then we can start to talk about bringing some of the supply chain back into Europe as well. So it's a long journey. We do not do this in 5 years, exactly. or even in 10 years probably, but we have to change the corner and change the direction. And I think it took 25 years to get where we are. It will not take 25 years to get back, I don't think, but we're certainly looking at a 5 to 10 year time frame to turn the corner and be more resilient. And I think we understand what that means now. You know, resilience in supply chain is critical. We saw the problems over COVID. We're seeing the problems again now through the Horn of Africa, and you know, shipments costing huge amounts more now because of tensions, geopolitical tensions. So I think you know, if we want to mitigate this, we want to do something about this to make it more resilient for us in Europe, we have to make this investment, and we have to understand this is costing money. It's not for free.
So let's keep our hopes up for the rest of the year, and that the industry also partakes in this letter of urgency so that we can get some help, some actual help from policymakers. Yeah. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us and for coming here to hold the presentation.
And it's my pleasure.
Thank you. Good.